The Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame recognizes Ohio's distinguished men and women who have worn the uniform of our nation's armed forces and then continue to contribute to their communities, state, and nation through exceptional acts of volunteerism, advocacy, professional distinction, public service, and philanthropy. The Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame. Nominate a veteran today.
Kimberly Frisco, Air Force, Desert Storm. My dad was a Korean War vet, Army. He was drafted, and he always said, you need to get an education, you need to do what you need to do. But I had a neighbor that lived near me, and she was a younger woman, and I became friends with her, and she had served in the Navy, and she told me about all of her time in the Navy. I loved watching war movies, and when I went off to college, they had something called ROTC. I could choose between the Air Force or the Army, and I chose Air Force, and I loved it ever since. The number one best thing that ever happened was I met my husband in the Air Force. I was the section commander, and my husband was an additional duty first sergeant, and he asked me out, and I said, I can't date you, it's officer enlisted, I can't fraternize. He said, if things were different and I was no longer in the military, would you consider? I said, I'd consider. A week later, he came to my office with his retirement paperwork. I didn't realize I would stay in the Air Force for 20 years. I was hoping to get in there, learn a career, get an education, and along the way, I just fell in love with serving our country and our military. When I left the Air Force, I decided that I would sell real estate. And I was happy-go-lucky, selling real estate, loving life. And then my husband said to me, you have to get a real job. And I said, I have a real job. I love what I do. But I always said to him, when I left the Air Force and we have an opportunity to go to our local VA, I really enjoyed my visit to the Dayton VA. I said, I felt like I was with my brothers and sisters in arms. It just felt like, old home week, enjoying my time there. I said, if I ever had to get a job, I'd go to the Dayton VA. Sure enough, after my husband told me to look for a job, I looked at the Dayton VA, and I found the perfect job for me. When I was at the VA, we went out of our way to do more and more for our veterans. We arranged educational services, many types of speakers. We went above and beyond to provide things for the veterans that we knew they needed. I was able to establish a veterans food pantry on the Dayton VA campus, serving veterans and their family. I am so honored and excited to be inducted into the Veterans Hall of Fame. Winning this award is a team effort. It's not a me effort. I would not have been able to do it without the many organizations that collaborated with me, my coworkers, the teams I worked with, and especially my husband. This is a wonderful honor. I never thought anything like this would take place. I feel like I was just giving back as we learned to do in the military and serve our veterans and serve our community.
Selection and induction into the Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame is a great honor. Nominate a veteran today